I'd like to introduce, I think, my fifth student from way back when. Finished up in 1977, did a thesis on recursive decoders for convolutional codes and burst channels, which he probably never used again, if I remember right. He was, of course, he was and is a professor at the Catholic University in Rio. He was scientific director of the Brazilian National Research Council, and in that position, he helped pave the way for the internet getting into Brazil, amongst many other things. He was the founding head of the Brazilian Telecommunications Society, the past president of the IEEE Communication Society, the current president-elect of the IEEE, and he's going to be the first non-North American president of the IEEE in 2014. I'd like to introduce José Roberto Bosson de Marca. So this is a double view. You're working on this one.
Okay.
And there's arrows.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank very much the invitation to the organizing committee, especially Bob Schultz, Andreas Molisch also. It's a fantastic opportunity. When they invite me, they say, well, should I accept that? What would I say to such those people that taught me everything? So what should I have to say now? But eventually I accepted, and I'm thrilled to be here, very honored to give you this speech. I had a great time as a USG student, graduate student, very much mostly due to the caliber of the educators that we had in these departments. I'm not talking only professors, but they're all educators. They're all very nice persons that helped me a lot during my time here. I was remembering when I was preparing this talk that when you arrive from another country, like from Brazil, at that time Brazil wasn't as developed as now, and my first time abroad, and I come to class here, you're kind of insecure, and then I am in a class by Dr. Goulomb, information theory, and then at the middle of his lecture, he said, well, now we imagine a sphere in 9 dimensions. I say, uh-oh, I can't get there. I can only see in 3 dimensions. I'm stuck. This course, I'm going to fail. I just have no way to get to 9 dimensions. Anyway, eventually, everything was fine. I also had to get used to the competitiveness of the US, which was very different in Brazil at that time. When I think my first year here, I was taking a course in analysis, mathematical analysis, and then there was a homework. And there was an American guy, my colleague, and I asked him, okay, can you help me? I'm not understanding the text of the question. I want to understand what the question is about. He turned to me and said, no, you did better than I did in the exam. I'm not helping you. Oh, okay. So it was a shock, but I got used to this. And then eventually I had to do something which I wasn't expecting either, which was do some gardening for Dr. Weber. I think I was invited to be a member of Eta Kappa Nu, one of those societies, and I naively accepted, and then said, okay, now, but there's one catch. I had to put some work on Saturday. Then I was carrying bags and so on, with grass from Dr. Weber, so it was fun. But in the end, I think it was a very rewarding and successful experience. I learned a lot here. A lot of my accomplishments that just mentioned, I guess, are due to my solid education here. And I also became a very good, I even learned to like American football. See, I come from Brazil. Football is something different. You do kick with your feet. And then I was able to learn. Actually, my first football game was memorable. Someone else was talking about that to me recently, without knowing that I was there, which was a game that UFC beat Notre Dame. At that time, they were beating them, 55-24, And actually, Notre Dame made 24-0 in the first half. USC scored a touchdown and missed the extra point in the end of the first half. And then the second half, they scored 49 unanswered points. So that was a great experience, everybody shouting and screaming in the whole second half. So I still follow the Trojan football. It's not doing so well, I guess, this year, but I still follow. So when I was invited to do this talk, Bob Schultz asked me to go use my IEEE experience to go over what I see the evolution of technology. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm relying a little bit on my this third line. Last 3 of the last 4 years, I was chair of the IEEE Future Directions Committee, where we've been developing new activities in supposedly hot topics. And so I'll be using that experience in this talk. I'm not going to give you solutions. I hope to learn those from the people who are making presentations afterwards. I'm giving mostly the challenges, problems. So that's really the focus. And actually, my talk could have been entitled the Minsk Institute motto. It's pretty much intelligent technology to empower mankind, or empower and benefit mankind. So if I had seen that before, I might have used that as the title of my talk. Actually, I didn't. So we have an interesting situation. I think we never had so much wealth in the humanity in any time in the world. But now we have, because of that, we have also some challenges, mostly due to population increase and mostly because people are living longer, which is a conquest of our knowledge from the medical life science. They are able to extend the lives of people. But now we have problems because we have a lot of people and having pressures on water and water quality, food, transportation. A lot of cities having terrible congestions because of all these cars in the streets. The energy consumption, we're going to talk about that several times, it has grown a lot in the last 50 years. Maybe the population doubled and the energy consumption quadrupled. Because we have an average age of population much higher now, but there's a lot of aging needs and people to have an independent life still when they're older. And also because we should also help people in more underprivileged regions with better health care. So all these major problems of humanity should be solved using technology, and we should help that. We should be able to contribute to these solutions, not only to create games, but we should be able to contribute. And also I put another underline there, preserving human history, because I think that's a challenge we have. How are we going to see all these pictures 100 years from now? I was just in Mainz, Germany, and I was looking at the Gutenberg Bible, and I said, okay, now 500 years or 600 years, I'm all there. They're like in several books. And of course, there's a problem 600 years from now. Maybe you don't want to see what was at USC in 2012, but if you want, how are we going to do it? Well, I'm sure the software versions will be different. They'll not be able to be compatible if you don't do anything. So that's another problem we have to address. But for the time being, I'm going to talk first about the things we are doing well. And the first thing we are doing well is that the internet that was, I guess, created by communication engineers, computer scientists, has been a great success. It has reached about 2.5 billion people in the world. It's still growing at 18% clip. And Asia now is the largest number of users. So it's one of those things we did. I guess for the past 20 years or 30 years, we engineers have been doing great things that have been changing society. If you look past, okay, TV happened and took 30 years, but now every so many years we're having internet, wireless, mobile wireless, everything is changing to help society. I just remember when I was here at USC, and maybe some young people won't believe it, but there was no internet and no Skype, so to communicate with family was very difficult. You have to use either the regular mail or pay $3 a minute for me to speak on the phone. So I actually like to, again, thank Bob and Lolly because they were kind of family when I was here in my graduate school. Continuing, we not only created the internet, it's a success. Now the traffic is growing like crazy, and a growth rate of 35% a year. And the units there are exabytes, 10 to the 15. So it's a big number. And if you took the business part, it's only about 15% in 2015, estimators. But they'll still be bringing most of the money. And, of course, the most recent thing is that mobile traffic is growing at a much faster rate, 92% or 100% a year. So this is really amazing. It's good and bad. It's good because people are using, hopefully making good use. It's bad because it's creating all kinds of troubles for capacity and also energy consumption. Most of the growth going forward will be due to video applications. So you see there in 2015, there's a 66% fraction of the overall traffic due to video. And the total mobile traffic is about 8, you go back to other slide, about 8% of the overall data traffic, internet data traffic. So is that enough? No, there's more to come. And I guess it's good news for us engineers. There are more things to do. So the next thing coming up is it's called Internet of Things or Smart Things, meaning that I would like to link people and things. So I'll be able to address things, I'll be able to communicate with things, and things will be smart things, of course, be able to communicate with us. And lots of applications that will be creating these additional growth in internet terminals. So going from billions that we have now to trillions in shortly, maybe 2020. So, and they come from all these applications you can see here, from smart buildings to e-health, to vehicles, teletransportation, environmental monitoring. In most of them, they're all sensing applications, and they relate to mobile services. So this Internet plus Internet of Things equals wisdom of the earth was a sentence spoken by the former Premier of China, Jinbao. I guess he just stepped down from his position. He said, well, China has to invest, and they are investing a lot of money in this area. They want to dominate this industry in the future. So that's a priority, high priority in China, Internet of Things. So that's the thing they feel as where they can come in and start to lead also in technology. But other players are also seeing the importance of this. And this was from November 24, so this week, maybe? Yes, or maybe last week. So GE stating that they're investing, GE, power company, investing a lot, over $1 billion, to hire and establish a lab and hire about 400 people, computer scientists, social computing, and programmers, software engineers, because they believe that this is a very important moment that they need to use as much as possible this Internet of Things concept for their own advantage. So they're calling this New York Times ad called Industrial Internet. And again, when I was in Mainz visiting the Gutenberg Museum, I saw all those printing machines and how they evolved with the Industrial Revolution in England. And maybe we're now having this new Industrial Revolution, because of the interconnection of sensors and machines to the internet. We're also going to have a virtualization of objects due to this new possibility of interact with things. So you may have, when you buy some goods, they may produce also a virtual version of that will be controlled by you. And so whenever you do something at the real one, it will also happen in the virtual one. So that will be a very interesting thing. And that will allow probably some people who like to shop to construct their own department stores with things from different department stores together for their own. So I think wives will be very happy with that sometimes. But that will be a very interesting development. And that will allow us to connect the non-physical with the physical, meaning that was one vision, that you're going to be able to do search over objects. So we can say, well, where did I leave my keys? And again, the keys will have some kind of a RFID or something which is addressable. They'll send information where they are. You're going to find it. The only question whether you're going to need keys or not in 10 years from now. But whenever you forget, you'll be able to talk to, maybe cameras will be better. Where did I leave my camera? That's often the case. You go have lunch and you go out, and then your camera is left behind. So where did I leave my camera? Anyway, so that's a vision, an interesting vision that you'll be able to. And I'm sure Google is working on that. Google is working on a lot of these future applications. You're going to see that coming forward. So the challenge here is, of course, to continue to develop sensor and actuators. You have to continue development that's happening, sensor networking protocols, and how you're going to control groups of sensors and how to address them individually or not. So individually means that you really need IPv6 because you're going to have 1 trillion sensors to address, and that will be a problem. So maybe you want to address them to a group. The impact of the do-it-yourself. A lot of people nowadays want to do things themselves, and that's becoming almost like another industry, another possibility. So groups of people creating their own solutions. How do they going to interact that with a more standard way of industry to work? The other big problem is this handling of big data generated by sensors, meaning you have all these trillion sensors generate some data. What do you do with them? Recently, I was in a talk, but someone from the University of Sydney. They have a big robotics group in robotics for big robots, like big trucks or cranes and so on. And the amount of data they collect to the sensors, this guy is a statistician. All he does is try to make sense of the data. And that's an interesting problem for the future, one of the hot topics. And of course, the societal impacts. Because with the internet, you kind of change ways of society to behave. A lot of these new areas will have impact society and have to worry about how society absorb or react to these new trends. So in this case, how you're going to guarantee people still having their civil rights, their privacy, and so on. That privacy is probably permeates everything you're going to be talking here. So moving forward now, I'm going to start focus a bit in communications, and then I guess the key components for the network society are this, the cloud, which we'll be talking later. What I call big smart pipe is, if you want to start on a backbone, and then the mobile broadband access, and then tons of sensor networks which will be inputting data either through the mobile network or directly to the pipe. So, so this smart pipe will have control mechanisms, mechanisms to enhance experience. So that's something very important today, the personalization of service. We're going to have tools for efficiency enablement. So we have different business models. We like to be able to use different business models as opposed to just a single one. And we, of course, you need to be adaptive. There's a lot of things these days that require you to be self-adaptive. And I guess Alan William is not here, but we need a lot of big optical communication equipment. You'll be able to provide, to have very high speed optical transport to be able to accommodate all that big data that is will be coming through soon. So next picture, I guess we all have seen. I took it from a communications magazine paper published last year. So it's the growth in wireless data rates. So we are doing a great job so far. So the data rates are being able to double, to increase by a factor of 10 every 5 years. So sort of following the Moore's law. But so people have been able to develop new technologies for wireless that are able to increase data rates by a factor of 10 every 5 years, which has been good so far. May not be good enough going forward. So the expectation is there's a data tsunami coming soon. I was reading also in some newspaper or internet about concerns of the English regulator, Ofcom, about this. I mean, the data growth is becoming too fast, and they are afraid of a big congestion in their networks that will come everything to a standstill. So that's a major concern. But now we also add this. So far, it's mostly due to video applications. Now, we're going to add all this mobile-to-mobile communications traffic. And some people say that you need a capacity increase of 1,000 in the next 10 years or so. Some people say you'll not be able to do that, to achieve that. It's a debatable issue. So China thinks they're going to need 1,000. But then China, I was in China, I don't know, just in August, and I think that China Telecom has 800 million terminals, subscribers. 800 million subscribers, so it's a big number. So it's almost impossible to compete with that, but so they are forecast that if the people there start to buy smartphones, it's what they're doing now, that this traffic will explode, and in the future you're going to need a 1,000 increased capacity. So how to get to 1,000? Maybe you can split this in parts. Maybe you can get an increase in frequency spectrum, maybe 10 times frequency spectrum, doing some tricks that you guys always do, and we do. I don't, there has to be flexible spectrum, but I don't think full cognitive ratio will be deployed. I'm not sure what will be successful or not. Use of higher frequencies is now being considered a lot. We are using frequency aggregation, so several tricks, but we need to increase the spectrum. If you can get more spectrum, maybe we can succeed in other areas too. So the other question, interesting statement I saw once, the guy said, well, the future of wireless is wireline, meaning that you're going to be using so small base stations, meaning the coverage of the base station is so small that eventually most of the network will be wireline, and then at the very end, in your home, you're going to get wireless access, as opposed to today, they have a wireless big cells. So, but it's sure they're going to go for super dense environments. There's some predictions talk about 50 million base stations in 5 years. And again, China Mobile, when I was there, they said that they have deployed 2 million hotspots already with using Wi-Fi, so they can offload the traffic from the major base stations. Some people are forecast that this number will grow to 500 million, not in China only, worldwide. And again, I guess it's feasible. We need continue to increase the air interface data rate from maybe to 10 gigabits per second, so another factor of 10. Well, there is another problem, though, is that right now we also need to reduce latency. Several applications that are being envisioned require that you cannot work with 1 second latency or delay. You need to go to 1 millisecond for transportation applications, for example, and some other, and later on to 10 microseconds. And then, of course, you need to reduce energy consumption. So you guys have an easy problem. You have to multiply capacity by 1,000, reduce delay by 10,000, and reduce the energy consumption by 40%. It's a simple problem. Have 5 years to solve it. So that's a challenge for the people working wireless. You have to work in all directions, capacity, delay, energy, and do it better. So nowadays, we are surrounded by sensors. So you talk about sensors will be one of the important factors in all this, and we already surrounded by sensors in different ways. Some of them we know, some we don't. But even our cars, of course, now have sensors. I turn on my car, if it starts to rain, it starts to wipe it by itself, the lights go on and off, everything gets automatic. But anyway, so there are more. So people now are trying to go even more further and trying to approach a human being, and they are trying to get sensors that can touch, can smell, and which is I guess something to be for the future, but it's being worked on. And so if you can add sense to the objects, we'll create a nervous system for the Earth based on sensors. There are several big companies with projects in this area. One of them, HP, has this Sense project. IBM has Marca Planet initiative. Cisco also has something similar. Of course, there are several challenges, and one of them is the second one, which I think is interesting, is how you're going to understand how the neural forms information signals for all the sense. We need to understand how it works so that we can mimic electronically, so how our body sends signals when he senses things. And there are some difficulties also, for example, in doing the touch modality, how to devise transducers that you feel exactly the texture and so on. So a big challenge going forward, but people are working on that. Other areas, for those who are working in their thesis, wireless sensor networks are a big topic. There's a lot of work in wireless sensor networks maybe 10 years ago. A lot of protocols and routing protocols and so on. But those sensor networks were assumed to be mostly composed of fixed terminals, fixed sensors. Now, we want all these applications, mobile sensors. You want some delay. We're going to insert delay constraints. So that will become more difficult. So there needs a second generation of wireless sensor networks to be developed. And they have continued to be power efficient. For some applications like smart buildings, we would like it to last 10 years, the battery. So that requires a very efficient sensor. Speaking of energy, so energy efficiency is a big thing for us, for the world, and also for us as communication engineers. It's something we can contribute, but you're also creating problems. That's why I say a tale of opportunities and challenges. So communication technology, ICT, information communication technology, can reduce a lot of the energy consumption in other areas. And those areas are here, for example. So there are estimates of how much you can reduce consumption in transportation, in buildings, industry. Of course, you can do more teleconferences. I'm not sure people like to travel less, but I don't know why. Actually, for example, if you take all the way to travel, people will not be happy. But we can reduce a lot of this, and we can create a positive impact on energy consumption in different areas. However, there are several very bad indicators of ICT as an energy-hungry area. So right now, as I said, we have 5 billion wireless terminals and growing. So we expect by 2020, it's going to have same number of people in the Earth and wireless terminals, 7-something billion. So more or less the penetration is reaching 100%, considering that some people maybe too young don't have it, or too old don't use. And there are about more than 500 million internet servers, and growing again fast. And as I said, the internet traffic is growing at 34%. So all these consume power. And so the energy consumption is growing about 20% a year, doubling every 4 years. So we have to stop that. We have to lower the derivative and make it grow slower. This consumption is about 3% of all the energy consumed by humanity. And it's about the same as the aviation industry. So it's a lot. The carbon footprint of aviation industry and ICT is growing much faster. So something has to be done. And actually, there's another risk for those people coming from a less developed country, is that these countries don't have enough capacity to produce energy. So if these things continue to grow fast, they may be out of the picture, not be able to follow the growth of others because they don't have energy, power. So there's a problem of maybe create a new digital divide going forward. Several industry companies started projects, and there's one famous, Green Touch, I guess, to reduce the energy consumption, especially of wireless. Of course, maybe their motivation is not one of the most noble. The price of energy is increasing a lot. This pink histogram, and so it's almost exponential. So what's happening now is that operators may not be able to afford the bill of electrical bill in a few years if the traffic continues to grow. So the traffic continues to grow very fast, have to invest in infrastructure, and the price of energy going forward, going up, they may not be able to pay the bills. So in some ways, they are being motivated by their business, not necessarily by exhausting the resource of the planet, but that's okay. They are investing money and resource to reduce the energy consumption. This is a curve also from a communication magazine paper, which shows the distribution of consumption in different parts of the wireless system. And of course, the radio interface is the one which has the most. And this just showed that if we do a reasonably good job, we'll be able to not grow, not double until 2020, be a little less than that. So get some improvement on the expectation. Okay, so we have to improve in several areas. I don't want to be dwelling too much on this, but basically we have now to, when solving our problems, make sure you optimize energy efficiency, not necessarily only increase throughput, reduce delay, but maybe the key objective function or metric to be reduced is energy. And then the others will be like constraints, throughput has to be at least so much, and so on. And that has to be done across the board from the device all the way to the applications, including all the layers in between. So I'm going to now talk a little bit about some communication service. Okay, so there's I think this question used to be asked when I was a student here. Was, well, what should I not leave home without it? And the answer was American Express cards, but not anymore, I guess, not going forward. And yeah, some other people say, okay, I want to buy wallet. That's an important thing. If you don't have any money, you go out and it'll be a problem. But then some people say, well, no, for the future, that will not be the case. For the future is your wireless phone. That's the most important thing to carry. But of course, not a normal wireless phone. As you can see on the right side there, this phone will know everything around you, about you, where you go, who is next to you, things that you like. So be able to do a lot of computation simultaneously. In some way, so you're sensing the environment, seeing the environment, help you to make decisions. So it'll be a different phone from what we have today, but not an iPhone 4 or 5, but something much better than that. And then, as part of this potential service for the future, there is this new concept called collective intelligence, which more or less say, well, okay, you have a group of people, they all agree, our terminals can exchange information autonomously. So, and then benefit the whole group, basically. So if you are, you're going to go in a given direction, driving, they can exchange information, say, okay, don't go this way, just go that way, because this one is congested, and so on. And you don't have to get involved. So it'll be a communication among your personal device that will generate some knowledge, and this knowledge will be beneficial to you. So that's the idea. Actually, there's a group at MIT in collective intelligence in a broader sense, but basically what they want to achieve is, okay, we want that if we have people and computers and sensors working together, we'll be able to produce more benefit or information, knowledge, than each of these parts by itself. So it's only humans, only computers, and so on. And so there's of course, there are problems with privacy again, and make sure the information you are getting is correct, that people haven't tainted with information. So there's a lot of issues there to be solved, in particular, not only the communications of the device, but how can you trust the other people around you? You don't trust other people around you sometimes live. Now your device, you have to make this decision whether to trust or not. Another bold vision for the future, actually something which is very good for professors like us, getting a little older. So you should be able to have some sort of glass, which have some screen and some networking capacity that would be able to get information for you in the cloud and bring it to you and display, and then you can make use of that. For example, you cross someone in the street, you say, oh my God, who's this guy? What's his name? He knows me. And then you send that information, and there's some sort of face recognition program in the cloud, brings back to you, oh, this guy, and then you say, okay, now I want more, and then you go to his Facebook page and bring all the information about the guy, displays to you in a corner of your glasses, and then you can, oh, of course, I haven't been so long, great. I know you have a son, I heard about that, and you can have all kinds of information about the person, and then that's helpful. Actually, it seems a bold vision, but it's starting to happen. Google is producing some Google Glass or Google goggles. This is a picture of it, which should be coming out in 2014. And of course, they are more interested in advertising and sending you. I mean, the idea is the same: have a screen, have some networking capability. But I mean, the type of information they want is they want to push to you some marketing information, advertising, and so on. And they claim that it will be available next year. So continuing our journey here, now go to the last of this network society, this so-called service cloud. That's not my area. So, and I found an interesting definition of clouds in this by this guy, Joe Wyman. He was in an event I was participating. And so he said, well, this sea of common, because all the resources have to be shared by customers. Location independent, because you want to access and be served regardless where you are or the server is. So there's an L. And of course, you need to be satisfied the latest requirements. Online, because you need a network. So you have to be networked by the smart pipe or some broadband access to the cloud. And there's your O. And then utility, regarding how you're going to price this. So use a sensitive pricing scheme, for example, flat fee. And then finally, on demand. So this service will be available on demand to the customer. So that's cloud. So I was happy to see this, find this acronym, or heteronym, I guess you call it. So there are different aspects of the cloud. There are different levels of the cloud, different service models. So the application layer, the service model, you can use the cloud for application services, for platform service as a platform, or infrastructure. And here are some of the questions. Basically, jury is still out there how much of your IT will move to the cloud. Each company is trying to figure out that, trying to see if you can trust the cloud. Some people would say, well, cannot even trust your own server because people hack into the server anyway. So why get to worry about moving your data to a truck somewhere in Arizona that is owned by Amazon or something. But you see people mention these concepts: the world is my data center, or cloud everything that's not in your desk. So these are concepts people are trying to sell. But then to be successful, you need to move it from centralized clouds to highly distributed clouds, and there will be network, of course, different clouds all over in the network then. It looks at a lot of clouds today in LA, too, different clouds. And security is the main concern. Everybody's still afraid of moving their data into someone else's server. And now how are you going to pay for that, and whether they'll be able to make money, and whether companies or enterprise will be able to save money or not. That's, of course, the key issues if you're going to have the cloud service. I heard someone describing that if you go to Microsoft, I'm not sure in Seattle, but there's a building, Microsoft, you see all the people working there, engineers and so on. It's like a truck garage, actually a truck, and they go there and they just dump the big containers and inside their own servers. So and of course you have a place to connect. So a lot of the investment being done in containers for internet servers and cloud service. Now let's go forward in some other applications that should benefit society due to the network people plus things environment. So the first one is very popular in the States, smart grid. I guess it's popular because you need to modernize the grid anyway. So they got money for a smart grid, but they're doing is just modernize the grid across the board. So to avoid what's happened in New Jersey 3 weeks ago, and IEEE was without power for 9 days, and several other people for more than that. And then there is smart living, a concept that's it's very popular in Europe these days. They already have a lot of trying to invest on this. And this can include even smart grid, but smart buildings, intelligent transportation, e-health, everything which is smart, going back to your motto, you get intelligent technologies that will benefit mankind. And of course, safety and security. I won't be talking about safety and security. The smart grid is sort of it's funny because people which are working, for example, in IEEE there is a big discussion, political discussion, because smart grid is much less about power and much more about communications, control, computing, and intelligent devices, sensors. But of course, the power people wants to control activities in smart grid, and all the technology that's being used is communications, control, and so on. So you want to increase efficiency. We want to be able to allow customers to regulate how much they use, and probably use some storage device to sell energy to the grid. I'm afraid this will eventually increase the cost for us, but we'll see. It's like airlines. They keep producing things for the same price, and you have to pay more for what you get. So this is an example of infrastructure where you see that the customers might have some renewable energy source like photovoltaics, eolic energy, and be able to store this energy and even sell to the grid when he is not using. We have maybe a hybrid car, which also has an energy storage device, and you have the smart meters. So that's pretty much the environment people are talking about in the smart grid going forward. And what you want to do, basically there's one issue is distributed generation. That's a challenge. I mean, we want to be able to have users being both users and generators. So we're going to have distributed generation. Demand management, so people will be regulating their use and try to avoid using the high peak hours. There's a big problem of energy storage. That's an important problem overall for several things I've spoken here. Electric vehicles is an interesting solution, although they will also consume a lot of energy. And you need standards. That will be probably the most difficult thing, to get standards that are interoperable, that people will be able to use across states in the US or across countries. That will be a major issue that will have to be solved. And there'll be, so there's a, so the major change in paradigm is that you are allowing users to, so it's a bidirectional control of the grid now. You can even get energy from yourself, or you can sell energy too. So continuing here, I'm going to speak quickly about smart cities, but because I want to get to another point. So smart city is something, again, of ICT applied to benefit society. And there are several areas you would like to do that: communication, transportation. So the one important issue for the future is you have to guarantee people's mobility. You have to be able to get to your job and so on. Urban security, urban management, and this all will be using this mobile platform that I mentioned before. So, but one of the important issues in here is as I said before, is to create smart environments that will improve the quality of life, in particular for people which are in a more advanced age. So the future scenario that you can see is this one. So we have the smart city, you have the smart grid, and then you have all the appliances, so you're going to be able to guarantee more independent living for people which have slightly less mobility, or they don't, you're going to monitor their health, and then everything will be intelligent that will allow you to do that. And also like lighting control to make sure that you save energy and so on. Another area related to smart living is intelligent transportation. And I put these 4 photos. The first 2, of course, are how you're going to sense and direct your car, the images you get from the sensors. This one below is how the car will look with all the sensors, antennas. But I don't like the two right ones I don't like. First of all, I don't like to use my trunk for servers and things of this sort. And now, right now, I saw an example of a robot that was actually replacing a car because the car could not circulate in the streets people didn't like. And the robot was fine, all the same device you have in a car. But here, there were 50 Dell servers. So that's how much he needed to process all the data, information, getting from the sensor, so you don't want that. You don't want to have to, it's still a bit away from being able to use your car. And of course, don't want to sit in the car in the bottom right. I mean, I want to go in the car and sit next to someone, not to sit in some car driving by yourself and just looking, and I don't have anybody to talk to. Don't like that. And so there's a lot of challenges going forward. One of them I added here because maybe very germane for US. People here love to be able to sue someone, and legal people, lawyers like that too. Of course, they love it. But in this case, it's going to be a problem because who do you sue? Do you sue the manufacturer? If there's an accident, you sue the manufacturer of the car. Do you sue the driver? The driver's not driving. Something is going by itself. So in this intelligent transportation system, you like to have there's a feeling that you need to develop autonomous movement so be able to better control the traffic because this is becoming too many cars in these mega cities. So the car, I don't like that idea, but that's how that people feel that's the only way you can address the future. But then the driver is not driving, so what do you do? So actually, the question is how you're going to get used. I mean, I saw this expression from a guy who was a car manufacturer. How are you going to get used to be a captain in your car and not a pilot? So just look at all the instruments, see if everything is going fine, but you don't drive. So people have to get used to that, and that will be and also maybe you can adapt to the vehicle behavior to the owner's personal style. I like to drive fast, so can this thing drive fast? I like to be a little more bold in this, and I can't. Interesting things that more like psychology of how technology will be used as opposed to technical part. I think I gotta try to be, well, I still have a few minutes, but, so another important area, of course, is e-health. And that's, we will use all the technology I've spoken so far, from the cloud to mobile connected device, advanced displays, which I haven't mentioned. And there are lots of e-health applications being developed across the world. So I'm gonna just show here a few. This worldwide unique electronic health record for each patient, which is very important but very difficult to achieve, especially if you go to Africa or some other country, so people can carry their information, the health information, to another doctor. If you have them in the cloud, then it'll be easier. People can access them immediately. Remote patient monitor, it's very important. It's a very application very much desired by developing nations. But for other countries, that may be not so important. For a less developed country, you really want to have a communication to some remote centers so that a doctor in a more advanced center can help treat a person in a remote location. Well, that's more important than just have remote monitoring of a guy which is basically well, just to check the pressure and see if that day he woke up well. Actually, just remember one point now. LA may really benefit of this intelligent transportation because after 35 years, people here still have not learned how to drive in the rain. So maybe whenever it starts raining, you're going to have to take people out of the steering wheel and let the car go by itself. Okay, finally, an area which I feel is very challenging and interesting is the connection between bioscience and electrical engineering and computer science. And so there are some simple applications you see top left, which is a body area network and all kinds of sensors in your body and measuring your whatever parameter that can be measured from your body. the telemedicine, which is in the left side, which I just spoke. Some more, so you're going to be able to ask questions about what I'm feeling some problem. I can consult the cloud. There's some information about what that can be. So you have to measure your parameters. So you can use it as a doctor. But the most important thing is the modeling the brain as a wireless network. And that's an interesting, very interesting application that people here might want to get involved. There are other very challenging applications related to medical science. For example, this one is an interesting example, which has a chip, oops, something didn't go, okay. A chip in a cell that you can put very close to the, for example, a cancer cell. So now instead of having a device which has the size of an organ, like say a pacemaker, we have a device which is similar in size to a cell, a nanotechnology device, but must have a wireless communication capability to communicate with outside. So you can be able to communication and give instructions. You can monitor the cell continuously. You can control the administering of medicines directly to that cell. So that would be a very interesting development if you can get. So I like the acronym too, the CHIC, chip in a cell. So that would be an interesting application. And there's all kinds of predictions for implantable device that, as I said, drug delivery systems can place very closer to the cells. And we have already robots doing surgeries these days and doing it with precision. I'm finishing. And then prosthetics is also an interesting thing. We just talked about a few minutes ago about how can we get the electrical signals to understand the body signals, the way bodies communicate. So the neural signals and electric signals, they can talk to each other. Then you can have an implant which will look exactly like a normal arm, because they talk the same language, the neural signals and the electric signals. If you can do that, a lot of people are studying that. That would be a great thing. So this whole prosthetics field is very challenging and can provide very good results. And finally, and he's going up. So there are a lot of grand challenges for life science, and this I just took from a workshop held by IEEE maybe 5 months ago in Washington. A lot of people there, including Nobel Prize. And so one thing I'd like to highlight, in several ways, you're going to see them mention, we want more engineers and physical scientists involved in our research. We need to team to be able to go forward, to progress, to achieve better results. So if you look here, you're going to see lots of times this, again, improve data collection and in better models. So they need us to develop models to help solve the problems, use our knowledge for that. So that's just to mention that this was described, this was developed, this list in as I said, a workshop on life science that was held in Washington. Finally, I won't have time because Dr. Schultz is standing, talk about lots of new other technologies and enabling technologies to this, to what we just said, augmented reality. Evolution of displays is very important. As I said, it will be small displays, flexible displays. This is a big area which is very, very interesting. I intentionally skipped advance in semiconductor and nanotechnology because most people here are not device people. Natural user interface is another area. Microsoft, for example, is investing a lot of power, brain power. And I already spoke about energy storage, where I guess we need a big improvement going in the next few years. So thanks very much. And I hope just that all these developments will be used to benefit mankind as the brochure of Institute here says. Thank you very much.